Hello, everyone. Today is our fourth story in our domain about immigration. Today's story is called From Ireland to New York City. Before we start reading, let's think about some things we've already learned in our previous read-alouds. We learned that an immigrant is someone who leaves their home country to settle and live in a new country or a new region. Why did immigrants come from Europe and Asia to the United States? If you said for a better life and for a job, you're right. The two immigration processing centers that were used during this time were Ellis Island and Angel Island. Ellis Island was located on the east coast of the United States, near New York Harbor. Angel Island was located on the west coast of the United States, near San Francisco Bay. Immigrants chose to settle in these big cities because there were more jobs in the cities, and earlier immigrants who came before them often helped the newcomers find jobs. Many immigrants chose to live near each other because they were able to feel more at home and support each other in finding jobs and learning English. Today's story, or today's read aloud, takes place in New York City. What are some other landmarks that we've learned about in this domain that are located in or near New York? Ellis Island, New York Harbor, Statue of Liberty. Did you guess those? Well, you guessed right. Remember, many immigrants who entered through Ellis Island settled in New York City. Irish immigrants were some of the people who settled in New York City. Irish immigrants are from a country called Ireland. Today, you're going to hear about one push factor that occurred in Ireland in 1845. In that year, the potato crop in Ireland, the main food crop there, suddenly died. Remember, a push factor is something that pushes or causes someone to leave their home country to go to another country. And pull factors are factors that cause people to come to another country, like food, religious freedom, job opportunities. Well, when the potato crop in Ireland failed and died, many people in Ireland had very little to eat. So, many people decided to immigrate to the United States for a better life. The word immigrate, spelled with an I, means to enter into a new country and settle down. Well, today, you're going to hear the word emigrate, spelled with an E. The word emigrate means to leave one country or region, to go to another one. In this read aloud, I want you to listen very carefully to find out what made the United States a land of opportunity for families who immigrated to the United States because of the potato blight in Ireland. But first, let's take a look at a few other words besides emigrate that we'll hear in today's read aloud. One word you'll hear in today's read aloud is afford. Afford means to have enough of something, especially money or time, available to buy or to do something. Afford. You heard me say this word in the introduction. This word is blight. A blight is a sudden and quick death of plants or crops because of a disease. Blight. And here's the word we talked about earlier, emigrate. Notice that it starts with an E and not an I. To emigrate means to leave a country or region to settle into another country. Let's get ready to hear our story. For once, Sean and Fiona Murphy were grateful for the crowds of people on their street in New York City. It was a freezing cold day in 1858, and all those bodies helped to block the powerful wind blowing in from the Hudson River. Fiona told Sean, "Let's go into Uncle Brendan's," and a minute later they entered into their uncle's little restaurant named Murphy's after their family. The cold followed them in, so they quickly shut the door behind themselves. A familiar voice called out, "Well, now, look who the cat dragged in." It was Uncle Brendan. "It wasn't a cat," Sean laughed. "It was Fiona. I'm hungry, Uncle Brendan." "You're a 15-year-old boy," his uncle answered. "You're always hungry. Sit down and I'll get each of you a plate. Sean, don't you eat so much that you leave nothing left for my paying customers." Just then, Aunt Kathleen came out from the kitchen and walked over. Quietly she asked, "How's your ma?" Fiona grew serious. "Not so good, Auntie. She says she should be used to this cold after living in a drafty one-room shack back in Ireland, but this New York winter is doing something to her. And you know, Pa, he never says he's worried, but when he was home last month, I could see it in his eyes. I've been wishing he would be home more." Kathleen replied, "He's lucky to have a job. Working to lay railroad tracks out west may take him away often, but his pay is putting food in your mouth and paying for whatever heat we can get in our home." Fiona's family, including her aunt and uncle, had been sharing a tiny apartment ever since they had emigrated from Ireland to settle in the United States. Uncle Brendan's restaurant, Murphy's, was doing well now, but he and his brother Peter, Sean and Fiona's father, were still paying back the money they owed for buying the restaurant. Any money they earned helped the whole family. By now, plates of food had appeared in front of Sean and Fiona. Sean breathed in the familiar smells of the food from his home country, Ireland. "Ah, bacon joint and potatoes," he told Aunt Kathleen. "It reminds me of Ireland every time I smell your cooking." "It should," she answered, "since I cook the same foods for you there. Only we have more to eat here. There was never enough food to eat after the potato blight ruined our main food source in Ireland. Even your pa, the strongest man I know, was getting weak from hunger. It's a blessing to come to a country where there's food to eat. The land of opportunity, indeed. Back in Dublin, Ireland, we worked just as hard and had a lot less." "Aye," said Uncle Brendan, "we would never have been able to own a restaurant back in Ireland, and even if we could have, no one had enough money to be a paying customer. We had so many hardships back home. We complained when all we had to eat in Ireland was potatoes, but we suffered tremendously when the potatoes were no longer there. Our family had to pay a lot of money to immigrate to America, and even with all of the difficulty we're going through, it has all been worth it. We have a good place to live in a neighborhood of Irish folks like us. Sure, some people have been hostile towards us, but there's more food on our table than we ever had back home in Ireland, and crowded as it may be, I prefer New York City to farming the rocky Irish soil. Still, I do miss a lot of the folks we left behind when we emigrated from Ireland." As he was saying this, the door opened, and a voice shouted out, "Well, I'm glad to hear that, Brendan, for we've no plans to go back." Uncle Brendan's face burst into a huge grin. "Michael Connolly," he exclaimed, and he saw his old neighbors from Ireland walking through the door. They were new immigrants to the United States now. After a happy reunion, Brendan said, "Sit down, all, and we'll bring you a good warm meal." Later, after the Connolly family was full of Kathleen's hearty food, Brendan asked Michael, "Have you a place to stay? And what are you doing about work?" "We are staying with my brother for now," his old neighbor replied. "As for work," he shrugged. "I'd hire you myself," Brendan said, "but I couldn't afford to pay you. But there's a fellow here from the old country who needs wagon drivers to deliver ice in the summer and coal for fires in the winter. No man alive knows more about horses than you do, Michael. I'll take you to meet him. It's hard work, but what isn't? At least you'll be near your new home, not like my brother Peter out west laying railroad track with a pick and a shovel." At this, his niece Fiona said, "But not for long, Uncle. That's what I was starting to tell you. We got a letter. Pa says his boss thinks so highly of his work that he's bringing him back to New York City to work in an office." Her brother Sean added, "Pa will be home at the end of the month. He says that it's a lucky thing he can read and write, or he would not have been given this new job opportunity. He says it will pay better than building the railroad out west. What's even better is that now he'll be close to home to care for Ma. You should have seen her face when I read her the letter. I think maybe she'll get better now, with Pa around." Uncle Brendan nodded. "Aye, Sean, when your pa is around, your mother perks up like a flower that just got watered. And see how important it is that you and Fiona learn to read and write so well at an early age. One day you'll have better job opportunities than any of us." Sean smiled. Fiona and I are very lucky now to live here in the land of opportunity, but we will never forget where we came from and what sacrifices our family had to make to get here." "Well," said Uncle Brendan, "it seems we all have a great deal to be grateful for here in America. Kathleen and I are lucky enough to own a restaurant. The Connollys are newcomers here. My brother will be with us soon, and working in a better job. And I believe your ma will get better, children. All in all, I'd say that as hard as the changes sometimes are, coming to America was a good idea."